Welcome to the CURES Show, where we explore the cutting edge of wellness. I'm Kara Sundlin. So after all of the hustle and bustle over the holidays, it's a new year, and that might mean it's a great time to give your relationship a little refresh. How do you do that? Well, I'm happy to be joined by renowned relationship experts, Casey and Meygan Caston. They are the power couple who form the online platform Marriage 365. Welcome, guys. We have almost anniversary twins. Come 20 years of marriage.
Yes. So excited to be here, Kara.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here with both of you. Let me just, so the audience can get a little about you. Perfect marriages aren't just divine dispensations. I mean, you guys, once upon a time, you said you were headed for divorce, and that's why you decided to create a platform that helps people with their relationships.
Yes.
Absolutely. I think so many people, we get married with the best intentions to live our happily ever after. But like anything that matters, it takes work and effort. And we really believed that our love was enough. And then when we got married, we realized, yikes, we were not equipped on how to handle conflict, in-law issues, things like that. And so we were really motivated to see how can we innovate the marriage space and provide resources out there for couples.
Yeah, and so, Casey, you guys were married for about 3 years, and if I have it right, Meygan, you started reading all the self-help books, you started going to therapy, you started doing all that, but it takes two. So then, Casey, I guess lucky enough, you wanted to learn too.
Well, Meygan became a really healthy person in this process. So walking into marriage, I think we both thought, well, dating was really easy. And then marriage was really, really hard because you're having to work together as a team. And we didn't know how to do that. We didn't have the tools and skill sets. So Meygan gets help. She starts getting healthy. And then I really saw a significant change in her. And I was really inspired by that. I saw a more confident person, someone who had clear boundaries, someone that really, really was aware of themselves. And so that became something for me. It was like, well, I don't want to be the unhealthy one. I wanted to be just like her. And so that started me on the journey. So rarely do couples ever work on their marriage together. It usually is one spouse that wakes up and says, you know what? We could be more. We can be better than this.
Wow. Okay. So let's talk about, we're going to go through some different issues, and let's start. We're coming off of the new year, and everyone's looking at their credit card bills, and finances can be a big stress in marriage. I think many of us remember parents growing up fighting over money. So finances can really be a big stress in marriage, and you guys have kind of developed a system to overcome that. In fact, once upon a time, you guys were $250,000 in debt.
Yeah.
Yeah, not proud of it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, let me tell you, talking about money isn't fun or sexy. So a lot of couples don't deal with money until it's a big issue. And that's really what happened to us. We had credit card debts, car loans, houses, and student loans. And, we'd finance anything that, they threw at us, because why pay now when you can pay later? But what it really forced us to do was address the debt in our lives. And when couples work as a team like we did, we had a shared goal, which was, hey, we want to be debt-free. We were willing to be accountable for our spending, which is really, really tough to do. We realized that we could accomplish anything. So I think the main point that we discovered when we were dealing with money issues is that money fights aren't about money. It's actually about what money represents to us. So for some, like for me, money represents fun.
Yep.
The more money we have, the more fun we're going to have, right? For Meygan, I know it's for hers.
It's more like a necessity. Yeah.
It's
like
security or
security, necessity.
It's safety. For some people, it's power. So some people, it's freedom. More money means more freedom. So couples really need to work on establishing what does money represent. Then we know actually what we're fighting about. So
Meygan, what's a practical tip that people can do like now to start working on this?
Absolutely. Well, something that we call, it sounds like a horrible name, but it's called the Blow Fund. But let me explain.
Hello.
every month we sit down and we agree on a certain amount of money where we get to spend as individuals. So while Casey's talking about you're working together as a team, so some months it's $100, some months it's $25. Usually after the new year, it's a little smaller of a budget, but that means that if it's $100, I can go and spend $100 on whatever I want. If I want to get my nails done or my hair done or a new blouse.
And no judgment.
And no judgment from your spouse. And, your spouse gets to do the same and they get to go spend their amount, the amount that you both agree on. So we call it the blow fund, but that's a really great way to still kind of have a little bit of that financial independence. Another thing would be to sit down weekly and look at just kind of some basics, high level. What's going out? What's coming in? What do we need to plan for financially? I think a lot of times people think they need to sit down with a spreadsheet and know how to do accounting. You absolutely don't have to. Just starting the conversation is a great place to start for couples, because if you can talk about it, you can have those shared goals.
And I would say one of the winningest strategies that, if that's a word, we used was when we got married, we realized we're working as a team, right? So no matter how much money one person makes, we never had any like power struggles on that because it was our money. It's our goals. And that was really, really helpful for us.
And Meygan, let me ask you, because I think there are a lot of couples where the money, they're both working and there might be some equality there. There are also moms who are staying home after maybe having a career and they're not bringing in the money. So they feel guilty or like under the control of the husband since he's making it. What's your advice for that?
Yeah, that is a very common issue. I used to be a stay-at-home mom. I would say the guilt is often actually more of an insecurity from her. And so make sure you feel confident to say, hey, listen, I'm doing we're each pulling our own weight. And this is why it's important to have very clear roles and responsibilities defined. What is your role? What is my role? But again, it goes back to if a husband or any spouse ever holds that over you, like, well, I make the money, it's not your money, that is when it would be a wise idea to have an online coaching session or see a therapist, because that means that there's a bigger issue of it's not our money, it's your money or my money.
Yeah.
And so speak up and say, hey, we are a team. And what's interesting is every study shows the wealthiest couples actually do work together and have shared common goals financially.
Okay. Does that mean a joint account?
We are advocates for joint accounts.
Yeah.
Going back to the accountability, I really
That's
do
what I
believe
have.
that.
Yay! Only because I just can't stand all the paperwork, and I'm the paperwork person.
There's more of an accountability. It's not as much like babysitting. I think a lot of people hear the word accountability and go, well, you're the boss of me. No, it's saying, listen, here's the money going in, here's the money going out. Let's be accountable for what we're spending and saving our money.
And let me just say that accountability is a core component to trust. And maybe we can get into this, but today's culture, we're in love with love. Like that's most important part of relationships. But that's actually not true. The most important foundation of every successful marriage is trust.
Trust. Okay.
And trust is being accountable. Like, can I trust you to be accountable to your spending in the budget that we create? Or do you have secret accounts that I don't know what's happening?
Okay. So as you said, fighting about money is really not fighting about money. It's usually other things. And we bring our childhood baggage, right? If one of us grew up with a lot of security and the other one, a lot of financial insecurity, that can clash.
Absolutely.
Well, so my mom's on her 6th marriage. So I had many different iterations of a childhood growing up, and it was back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So for me, I didn't have like tying back into what does money represent? It represents more fun. I didn't have a lot of fun growing up in my childhood. And so now it feels like I'm compensating.
A great question to actually ask your spouse is, what did you see your parents spend their money on? Were your parents spenders? Were they savers? What is something that they did when you were growing up that you want to make sure we don't do as a couple? And what's something that maybe they did that you do want to install and implement in our marriage? And have those, again, going back to constant communication. If you can talk about it, you can figure it out most of the time.
Yeah, and we're going to get to other tips besides just finances, but I know that's a big one, because the other thing we're going to talk about in this show is deepening your emotional connection. But if you're fighting all the time over the bills, I think it gets more complicated, right? It's simpler when you first get married, but then when you've got kids and college and maybe an unexpected job loss, like everybody's going to have these challenges, I would think.
Yeah, and you can't wing it. Like you really have to establish a plan, and you have to spend time actually thinking and dreaming. Like, let's be intentional. Like, where do we want to see ourselves in 3 to 5 years? Where do we want to see the kids, and where are we going to spend our vacations? And that's actually something Meygan and I are going to be doing here coming up in the next couple of weeks, is looking at what does the rest of the year look like, and let's map that out now. Reactionary couples tend to just, it's off the cuff, it's on the fly, and there really is no plan. And that's not a successful tactic for marriage.
So what if one of you is a planner and the other one's not? Then does one of you feel like you're doing all the work?
That's our marriage. That's us. I'm the planner. I'm the type A. I feel like over time, he's been able to see the benefit of being a planner. It's not a matter even of one's right and one's wrong, though I like to say planners are usually right. No,
well, I always say someone has to do it.
Yes, exactly. So I think that it's finding that balance where there are moments where you need to plan. And again, going back to the finances, if someone's listening to this and you know, it's bad and and you feel that hurt, because when it comes to marriage, there's a lot of pain and deep pain. And we understand that, you know, you either can be motivated by pain or motivated to say, I'm going to listen to the experts, or I'm going to listen to wise advice and not be reactionary, but be proactive.
Yeah. So before we move on to deepening our emotional connection, one last thing that I know you talked about on Great Day Connecticut, we did a nice shorter interview to preview all this, but one thing you talked about, something that you guys do every week that really helps.
Yes. Okay. The weekly marriage business meeting, and it's probably one of our most powerful tools that we teach couples. We actually have a worksheet inside of our app, but it is dedicated time for Meygan and I to look at the week ahead and really look at like what's happening in our schedules. We live and die by our calendars. Everything that we do in our life is on our calendars, and we spend that time looking at every single day, what's happening on Tuesday afternoon, what's happening on Wednesday morning, like what kind of meals are we looking at? And it also looks at the whole week as a whole to see, well, when are we going to be intentional about Meygan and Casey being together as a couple? Yeah. So we're mapping out date nights. We're planning sex even.
I know, we schedule sex. It always,
well, it's that important.
It is that important to us.
And we're that busy. But it is important for us to even schedule alone time, right? Because you can't pour from an empty cup. Like there needs to be some self-care time.
So weekly, we do this on Sunday nights. Takes about 30 minutes, sometimes to an hour, but we really sit down. And just like with any company, you know, you have business meetings to make sure that all of your employees are on the same page, reaching and achieving their goals. It's the same idea. And typically husbands love this because it's more of a transactional opportunity for you guys to get together. It's not necessarily sexy or fun, but it's very intentional time to plan out and be on the same page.
Well, and it sets the right expectations. And I think when you have missed expectations, that's actually where a lot of conflict happens. I thought you were going to be here. Well, you said this, or we didn't have a plan. We're just reacting to life. And then we're leaving it to assumptions like you should know what we're doing on Tuesday. So that's why this meeting is so vitally important.
Yeah, yeah. And you're okay, Meygan, if you're the one who's actually physically putting everything on the calendar and doing reminders, you're just okay with that?
I'm okay with that as a planner. I love it. And I think
I love it because I know exactly what's happening and who's picking up who from which activity. It's great. It's perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. I could probably say, my husband would probably say I'm a little passive aggressive when he says, what's going on tomorrow? And I say, didn't you check the calendar?
It's like we might be related, Kara. I don't know. I think I've said that once or twice before.
Yeah. So let's go back to the scheduling of intimacy and the scheduling in general, the getting on the same page, because you know, once you are on the same page, we're all busy moms and dads. You've got teenagers and a middle schooler. I've got the same thing. You know, you're not really going to have this deep, loving connection time, I guess, unless you schedule it, even though you think you're going to.
There's a lot of couples that are just trying to wing it in their relationship. They don't have a strategy. They don't have a right mindset. But I think you have to be intentional. Busyness is one of the biggest killers in marriage today, because we're giving ourselves to everything throughout the day, work and schedules and PTA and driving around, taxi drivers, becoming a chef, that at the end of the day, we're so exhausted and we give our spouse the leftovers.
Absolutely. And so in order to prevent that, you have to schedule it. We make time for the people and things that matter in our lives. Now, I think being able to really sit down and say, you know, even if it's 5 minutes is better than no minutes. A lot of women are guilty of this. We unfortunately complain. I miss you. I want to spend time with you. Why don't you take me on date nights? We need to do something fancy together. We need to celebrate our anniversary. And those are great requests. The problem is that if there's no action to it, they just become empty requests. And then there's like bitterness, because you're like, I told you I want you to do more date nights. That's why it's like, hey, let's do a date night and let's put it in the calendar now.
Well, now somehow the husbands need to take some ownership, including myself. And that is, we need to be better at initiating that. And it doesn't necessarily mean you know exactly what's going to happen. Just as long as you walk up to your wife and say, I want to be with you. I don't even know what we should do. Let's take a walk, play a game. Let's talk. Yeah. But I just want to be with you. That usually is enough.
So date nights don't have to be fancy. You two often plan them as basic stuff at home.
All the time. I think especially like during COVID, it was a really great opportunity for people to get creative. So Casey and I were big advocates, like find a board game or card game. You can go on YouTube and learn how to do it if you don't know how to, but make it fun where you're not just playing the same game every night or every couple nights. And we make it fun where we spice it up. We're like, winner gets like a back massage, or winner gets to pick the sex position.
That's
something
my favorite
like
game right there.
So make it fun. Taking walks, by the way, is a great way to connect. Even on a date night, if you're like, is that really a date night? If you make it a date night where you don't have your kids with you, absolutely. A lot of people get really uncomfortable sitting on a couch and talking about feelings and emotions. Getting up and walking is so good, and it really inspires.
It gets the creative juices flowing.
Yeah, absolutely. It really does. Yeah, but you could do, you know, a spa night at home. There's just so many different things that you can do. Find a recipe online that you both have always wanted to try, and go in the kitchen together and cook it.
Yeah, you know, I'm a big fan of walks, and I love them. During COVID especially, I took lots of walks. I think we all did. My husband will be like, ugh. But like, I guess once he's out, it's fine. But he could say, let's go to the gym together. But when you're going to the gym, you're not doing anything together. So a walk could be something simple, like 5 minutes, 10 minutes after dinner, which is also good for us.
Absolutely. Yeah. It has multiple benefits.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now if you want to, what about love languages? A lot of us might have read about them. Maybe we know ours. Maybe they're very different. Let's say, you know, my husband and I need a lot more words of affirmation, and I need silence, but, you know, physical touch or quality time. Like, you know, you might have different ideas about what actually makes you feel appreciated or feel loved. How do you deal with those different styles?
It's funny because we do also have opposite love languages.
Wow, do we?
So we're more actually different than alike. And then people meet us and they're surprised that we're so happy. And it's because we've used our differences to balance each other out. But I think so much of it is, you know, Casey loves words of affirmation. And for me, I'm like, show me an action. Don't talk about it. I want to see you go do something for me, right? But we're now aware of the love languages. So first step would be aware of your love language and be aware of your spouse's love language. If you don't know that, you can just Google, what's my love language? And all of it will come up. But I think not just knowing it, but then now actually creating kind of a cheat sheet. We call them love lists.
Yes.
And so it's another worksheet that we have. And you list out the ways that you want your spouse to love you. So for me, it's like unload the dishwasher. Now he still thinks, how does unloading the dishwasher make you feel loved? But it does for me, right? For him on his list, he has things like write a little sweet Post-it note and put it on the mirror. write me a note and put it in my, briefcase, things like that, because he loves words.
And love lists are one. I'm so excited about love lists. It was one of my favorite worksheets that we put together because, again, I go back to a lot of couples are winging it, right? You keep hearing me say that. There's no plan. They leave it to assumptions, like you should just know what I want. And that is not productive. So the love list is actually removing all assumptions because she's telling me on her sheet exactly how she wants to be loved. And then she gives that to me, in which I can put into my pocket, or I can, take a picture on my phone. And now anytime I want to show love to Meygan, I know exactly how to do that. And I don't have to guess at it. Because a lot of couples, the reason why they get into trouble is, like, for example, when we were first married, I told Meygan how much I loved her because the way I wanted to be loved, that's how I loved her. But what we have to understand is I need to love my partner the way they want to be loved. And usually that's a learned experience, right? So that's how we were so different. But then we found that like how to leverage that. It was powerful for us.
Yeah. So my intention is that couples like us will just I'll show this to my husband later and we can sit and listen to this. But, even when you have a good marriage, which I'm blessed that I do, there's always ways to feel more connected, feel better, not just be going through the motions. And that's what you've created with this platform. So you read a bunch of self-help books, you went to a bunch of therapists. It all takes a lot of time and effort, which we're already running low on. So you created Marriage 365. How do people use this to better their relationships?
Well, the reality is couples therapy is very expensive and something that a lot of people don't want to go to. So this became something for us to innovate in a space that really hasn't been, paid attention to, by making a really easy and affordable, practical way to work on yourself inside of your marriage. Because if you want to make a better marriage, it starts by making a better you. And so what we wanted to do was give individuals inside of relationships the right mindsets, practical tools, like, what do I do if my spouse is angry all the time, or if I'm angry all the time? What do I do? How do I set boundaries? What are boundaries? What do I even do?
How do I get my spouse to open up emotionally? How do I deal with a crazy mother-in-law? So many things that we all ask ourselves. We wanted to help couples solve, fix, process, and even give a guided plan on how to solve those issues.
Exactly. So it's really, really empowering to realize that couples can work on themselves. And that can create such a better, more healthier marriage, even if their spouse is unwilling.
Oh, even if the spouse doesn't want to do it or they think they don't have time. So Meygan, I sense that, you said you used to be a teacher. So these worksheets and these practical tools, that comes from you, right?
Yeah, I definitely, I'm actually more of a fixer. So oftentimes females in the relationship are not fixers, but I'm a total fixer. I'm like, I want you to tell me what I need to do and how to fix this as soon as possible. So yes, I think it's partly teaching, partly the fixer in me for sure. But that's where I think it helps a lot. And because we're a husband and wife perspective, I think a lot of men really appreciate our resources because it's not just all about, feelings and emotions, which I think a lot of people feel that that's the stigma around getting help for your marriage. But there's no shame in needing some guidance, resources, help for your marriage. No one should ever feel bad about it.
No, and in every video we talk about our own struggles. So I think when we were struggling, it felt very lonely. It felt very shame. Like I didn't want to talk about how bad my marriage was. And what we're trying to do is erase that stigma by saying, no, we all struggle. Everyone's, has their unique challenges. Between both sets of our parents, there's 12 marriages. Walking into marriage, we were not equipped. And so we're the least likely to succeed in marriage. And if we can do it,
you can do it.
You can do it too, okay?
Well, that's part of it, right? You both really want this. And I think, that can be something we can have, but it's often not enough. You can really want that marriage. You can want to not repeat the mistakes of your parents. But if you don't have a tool on how to do it, then it's harder. So you provided a lot of tools, a lot of coaching, a lot of all that. We have a little less than 5 minutes together. I want to get to some parenting. I think parenting can really be difficult because, you mentioned a lot, we need to be on the same team. but you might have different perspectives. And then you're in the middle of a child melting down. You're like, you should have said this and you should have said that. I know you're not supposed to do that, but that happens. So what's your advice with when parenting is causing stress?
To be completely honest with you, parenting is actually our number one reason why we argue in our marriage. So I love that you asked this question, because if you're listening, you're not alone. I think the biggest thing is to be a united front in front of your children, because you're going to disagree on how to parent, how to handle situations. If you haven't yet, just wait till you have teenagers, right?
Right. And I'm guilty of that, of sometimes like jumping in and be like, no, that's fine. No, don't. Okay, this is how we're handling it. And then I'm 100%. Like, uh-oh, I just like totally, he'll look at me like, you just weakened me. I'm like, right. I shouldn't have done that in front of them, but you just get busy.
Yes. And that is exactly the point, is that you now are showing your children, ooh, mom and dad aren't aligned. And then they'll play on the weak one. And there's usually a weak one in the marriage. And for us, it's him.
We need dinner. We have a lot of similarities here going on. You're like the fun one. I call him my husband, the Disneyland dad.
There you go. Yes. No, totally. And so I think like being a united front in front of your children is really, really important. Yeah. I think too, when children act up, they want two things. They either want attention or they want power. And to know that as, parent, as you co-parent with your spouse, wow, they're acting up right now. I think too, taking parenting classes is very helpful. But I think also at the end of the day, we do a version of the weekly marriage business meeting, but we have a family one where you sit down as a family weekly, and we do this. And let me tell you, our teenager crosses her arms and rolls her eyes and is like, okay, but I can see we're creating a healthy habit in her where we also get aligned as a family. And it's an opportunity even for the kids to speak up, to talk about like, maybe they're mad at their sibling, they're mad at mom and dad, but that really shows that we're a team at the end of the day, mom and dad, and we're here as a family. And we want to make sure that we give you the safest environment possible.
And let me just add too, I think it's so important that we show to our children that our marriage is first, because if we don't show that to them, when they grow up, how will they know that their marriage is the most important thing? And so couples that put their marriage on the back burner and become parents first are really setting up a bad example. And I know that hurts. I know that can hurt a lot of people because they feel like, well, I'm doing everything for my kids. Well, your kids are only with you for 18 years and then they're gone, hopefully. And then it's you two. Right? You are the foundation of the family. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, teaching your kids that they need to, well, number one, that marriage isn't necessarily magic. Great that you're going to have a wedding and all these things, but you guys got to year 3 and we're almost breaking up. So teaching your kids that this is what mom and dad do to have this long marriage, and God willing that, you guys are going to last for a really long time, and like, oh, I've got these great role models. So there's so much. I know we don't have any more time to go into it, but I want to let everyone tell people how they can learn and get coaching from your platform real quick.
All right. Well, you can head to marriage365.com, which is our website, and all the information's there. And of course, you can download our app in the App Store.
Yes.
Yeah, and you're on Instagram also at Marriage365 if you just want to follow you guys for a little bit. But Meygan and Casey, great. Thank you so much for the practical wisdom. We loved having you, and we wish you a happy new year and lots of conflict-free nights.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great day. And for more information on the cutting edge of wellness, you can always follow me on social media at Cara Sundlin. I do like to share this content there, and download the CURES podcast on your favorite platform. Have a great day and be well.